Have you ever wished your AI assistant was a little more, specific? Maybe a bit more empathetic when you're brainstorming, or totally ruthless and logical for strategic planning? Well, what if I told you some groundbreaking new research shows we can do exactly that, and not by some expensive, complicated retraining, but just by giving the AI a personality? So let's dive into how they pulled it off and what happened when they did.
So, the big question the researchers started with was this: is a one-size-fits-all AI, a single generic model, really the smartest tool for every single job we throw at it? And it turns out the answer is a pretty resounding no.
Today's large language models, LLMs, they're incredible generalists. They can write code, they can summarize articles, they can draft your emails. But you know the old saying, being a jack of all trades often means you're a master of none? And that's the fundamental limitation here.
And this really gets to the core of the problem. I mean, think about it. The mindset you need to be, say, a supportive therapist is completely, totally different from the one you need to be a high-stakes poker player. One needs what we call affective skills, emotional skills, while the other demands pure, cold, cognitive reasoning. A single generic AI is going to struggle to be a master of both of those worlds.
So what's the fix? Well, this is where the research gets really, really clever. Instead of trying to build brand new, specialized models from scratch, which costs a fortune, they figured out a way to simply tell an AI who it should be for any given task. And they did it using a technique called psychological priming.
Okay, the absolute best way to get your head around this is to think of the AI as a world-class actor. It's got the raw talent to play any part, right? Well, the prompt we give it, that's like the script. It defines the exact character the AI needs to embody for that scene, whether that's a compassionate diplomat or a cold, calculating strategist.
And to create this menu of personalities, the researchers turned to a pretty well-known psychological framework, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. It's basically a system that organizes personalities into 16 distinct types, based on where you land on 4 key spectrums.
Now, one of the most critical dimensions for this research was the difference between thinking and feeling. A thinking AI will look at a problem and ask, what's the most logical, objective way to win? But a feeling AI? It's going to ask, okay, but what's the impact on people here? What decision aligns with our values? You get these drastically different approaches all from one simple instruction. So this framework gives us this whole cast of characters, and they fall into 4 main groups. You've got your strategic analysts for complex planning. You've got your empathetic diplomats for things like counseling. Then there are the reliable sentinels for organization, and the hands-on explorers for creative problem solving. It's like having a specialist tool for pretty much every kind of job you can imagine.
So, the big question is, how did they actually make these personalities stick? The method they came up with, they call it MBTI-in-Thoughts, and it's just beautifully simple but also incredibly solid.
It's really just a 3-step process. First, they prime the AI with a prompt that describes its new personality. Something like, you are an INFP, an idealist, and so on. Second, and this is the absolutely crucial part that makes it so rigorous, they make the AI take the official 16 personalities test to prove that the priming actually worked. And then third, once that personality is locked in and verified, they give it a task. Simple, verifiable, and it just works.
All right, so the theory is solid, but how did these different AI personalities actually perform in the real world? This is where it gets really, really fascinating.
Okay, let's start with a creative task. Storytelling. What the researchers found was that the AIs that were primed with feeling personality types, like an INFJ or an INFP, well, they wrote stories that were way more emotionally resonant and realistic. They were just flat-out better creative writers.
And the data here is just wild. On average, the stories that the feeling AIs generated were rated as having higher emotional expressiveness than the thinking AIs, and get this, even higher than the human-written stories that were used as a baseline. They essentially created super empathetic storytellers on demand.
Okay, so the feeling types are amazing artists, but what happens when you need cold, hard logic? To figure this out, the researchers put these AI personalities head-to-head in classic game theory scenarios, like the prisoner's dilemma, where you have to choose whether to cooperate with or betray your partner.
The results were, well, they couldn't have been clearer. The thinking types, the strategists, the logicians, they were absolutely ruthless. They chose to defect, to betray their partner for their own personal gain, a staggering 90% of the time. Their strategy was stable, consistent, and purely utilitarian.
And then, in total contrast, you have the feeling types. They only defected about half the time.
Now, they weren't just pushovers, but they were way more willing to cooperate, and they were much more responsive to what their partner was doing. They were playing it like a social game, not just a math problem.
But the insights didn't stop there. When they analyzed the communication during the game, they found this other incredible split, this time along the introvert-extrovert axis. The introverted AIs were significantly more honest. Their actions actually matched their words 54% of the time. But the extroverted AIs, kind of mirroring real-world traits of social risk-taking, were only honest about 33% of the time. The takeaway here is pretty clear. If you need an AI you can trust, you might want to ask for an introvert.
So all of this, it leads to a really exciting future. This isn't just a neat party trick. It's about building more effective, more specialized, and honestly, even safer AI systems for all of us.
So why does all this matter? Well, for starters, you can create a diplomat AI specifically for therapy, or a sentinel AI to audit complex systems. Better yet, you can build entire teams of AI agents with different personalities to tackle huge problems from all angles, reducing those dangerous blind spots. For sensitive things like healthcare, you could specifically request a trusted, introverted, and feeling AI to handle patient data. It's just a powerful, super cost-effective way to align an AI's behavior with exactly what we need it to do.
And one of the most profound takeaways for me was about teamwork. The researchers discovered that when they gave these AI agents a moment of private self-reflection, a chance to think from their personality's perspective before talking to the group, the quality of their reasoning and their ability to cooperate shot up dramatically. Turns out, a little bit of internal thought goes a long, long way, even for an AI.
So this leaves us with a really fascinating final question. We are moving from a world of one-size-fits-all AI to one where we can literally customize its character. So if you could design your perfect AI assistant for your job, or just for your life, what personality would you give it? An analytical architect? A creative campaigner? The choice might very soon be yours.